Radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right, welcome, Fade to Black. Today is Tuesday, June 6th, 2023. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, and tonight, are you ready? Wildlife biologist Pat Spain is with us tonight. But tonight we're going to be talking about cryptozoology and all of the other crazy stuff he has done in his life. We're going to cover all of that. And we know cryptozoology, it's one of those things that we cover a lot on this show. He's also a biotech expert. Of course, he's got all of his TV shows. He's been speaking around the world. He's a cancer survivor, and he has that passion for adventure. The one constant in his life, though, is a passion for adventure. It's education, and it is entertainment. We'll be doing all of that tonight. He served as keynote speaker at the Royal Geographical Society in London. He spoke at NASA, multiple international universities. His latest adventure TV series, Legend Hunter, is on the Travel Channel. It aired back in 2019 with about 10 million viewers per week. And I cannot wait to get this show started tonight. Now, everything for Pat and his full bio and everything, of course, over on our website. We've got links and everything in social media, and you can go and check all of that out. And I just want to get straight to it. I'm very excited. Tonight we have Pat Spain with Pat Spain. I almost said Pat Smear. Hey. I almost did, and that's your fault. And you know what?
I'll take it.
Oh man, seriously, Pat Smear, one of the greatest names in all of music was Pat Smear.
Absolutely.
No question about it. Welcome to the show, Pat. And before we get started, you get the first time guest disclaimer. So let's get that out of the way, which is, Pat, it's just you and I tonight sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends, and where it starts, it starts, it ends, it ends. But we're going to end as friends. There you go. Except you have to click. You have to click. No, I was kidding. See, I got you.
It's been a long day. Sorry.
I got Pat Spain. Here is where I'm going to start. Now, I know that in a strange way, this seems like it's out of your wheelhouse. I connect the dots to everything. All right, so let's start here. The news over the last 24 hours that is breaking around the world on all the media outlets, everywhere that you can see, is that we have a government whistleblower insider from the intelligence community that has now announced that the United States has flying saucers and alien bodies. Now, I just watched a few minutes ago before showtime. It's right there, mainstream on Fox News, and this is a big, this is a big story. Alien bodies. What would you do? You're a marine biologist. This is what you do. The animal kingdom, cryptozoology. You're in search of this kind of stuff. What would you do if you had the opportunity? Would you check that out? And
100%.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'd be fascinated by it. I mean, I think the whole world would be fascinated by it. It's, it would change so much of what we know about our history, about the so much that we could learn from them. We could learn, how evolution has worked on wherever they're from. We could learn, what other intelligent life is like. There's the competing theories. Does intelligent life always mean that you're going to be violent, or does it eventually lead to a peaceful group? we could find the answer to that, in one way or another, be it good for us or not.
Right, and now it would I need your answer on this, because I think this is a question. Once we cross that Rubicon, right,
Mhm.
we're not alone, and they're visiting this planet, right? And I think we're not only closer to it than ever before, but the universe is a big place, and there's got to be a lot of life out there, right? Okay,
Sure.
but at what point uh, do we classify something as alien or just another species? I mean, because kind of technically we're aliens too. You understand where I'm going with this?
So I mean, the theory of panspermia, they're thinking about, like, was did all life on Earth come about from a meteor or from some kind of, and I think that maybe, maybe, but where do we classify it? I think that we classify it as something that has evolved outside of Earth. Anything that has evolved outside of Earth, we would classify as alien. But yeah, I mean, any life that we discover that has evolved outside of Earth's atmosphere would be fascinating to study. I mean, there's theoretically water on Titan, right? So if there's water on Titan, then there's almost certainly life there. So, there's supposed to be a frozen surface layer, but then underneath that, there's liquid water. Um, I mean, probably not intelligent life, but it would be something that would be amazing to see and amazing to study, and would give us, decades of research.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? Octopi,
Oh yeah,
pretty intelligent.
very smart.
Very,
Absolutely,
right.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
the cephalopods. I mean, squid can be taught to swim mazes. Octopus can problem solve. They can, get food. For such a short-lived animal to be as intelligent as they are, it's really strange and it's really unusual. And they think that that's actually it's
eh,
a side effect of their huge eyes. They
no,
think that they developed a larger brain because they needed such big eyes, and
they can outthink you. I,
well,
yeah,
for me, I'd say that's a true statement, but
you know,
humans have still probably got them beat.
I was watching this documentary years ago, and this octopus is living in this tank,
Mhm.
a bunch of them, right? And figured out, it's just think about it. Figured out how to reach out of the tank and grab stuff.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Right?
definitely. They've shown that a few times.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, the snack food, whatever. I don't know if it's sardines or whatever, but
Yeah.
and was doing it when the biologists in the room weren't looking.
Yeah. Oh no,
Right?
they're very smart. Yeah,
Very
they're
smart. Yeah.
There the new, Twilight Zone, the new reboot of the Twilight Zone, they did an episode with Tim Armstrong from Rancid, where he plays a marine biologist, and, they're studying super intelligent octopus that wanna kill all the crew and everything. I won't spoil it, but it's well worth watching.
Right. I'm gonna go check that out. I'm gonna go check that out. Can we okay. Let's stay here for just a
Sure.
second further, because now we're also going to tie in music to all of this too as well. But it's all connected, my friend. Right?
Yeah.
Um, what would you expect if you're performing an autopsy? You've got this species in front of you, and let's stay in a safe zone. Here are the parameters, right? Head, stereo eyes, stereo ears, nose, mouth, two arms, two legs. I don't know how many fingers, right? But a
Sure.
basic thing, right?
Humanoid. Sure.
Humanoid. I see. I could have just said all of that and just said humanoid. Thank you for that, Pat. But okay, and now you got scalpel and you
Mhm.
got your Dremel, right? whatever you got. What would you expect to see on the inside?
Me on the floor passing out.
Right.
So my wife took gross anatomy, and she dissected cadavers, and she's done that stuff, and I more power to her. I think it's absolutely amazing. I never have. I think that I would be in a little bit over my head. I have dissected many sea creatures, and lots of other, vertebrates and invertebrates. But I think once we get into anything humanoid, I'm out of my depth.
Yeah, but would you expect a similar anatomy on the inside as us? Organs, in a similar layout, lungs, liver,
Yeah, I mean
gallbladder.
the great thing about evolution and the possibility of life outside of Earth is that the sky's the limit. There is no expectation. Yeah, I mean, based on based on the morphology, of humanoid shape, you would think that there would probably be things that would correlate and correspond. But might their brain be in the center of their body? Sure, absolutely. Might there be a different way to get to breathe, a different way to respire? Yeah, definitely. We have lungs, but there's not just one solution. We can look on Earth and we can find all kinds of different life forms and different ways that animals have overcome survival. We have chemosynthetic worms that live in the deepest part of the ocean that bear almost no resemblance to anything else. We have hagfish that live in the ocean that we can find that are not closely related to really anything. I mean, sort of to the lamprey, but that's about it. I mean, we have such a diversity of life on Earth that it's hard to predict what you're going to see when you start to cut something open. Yeah, I mean, I would expect there to be parallels that we could draw to human anatomy, but not a direct or nothing direct at all. Like I wouldn't expect to see kidneys, but I'd expect to see something that does the same type of function of removing waste as kidneys. I wouldn't expect to see a single 4-chamber heart, but I would expect to see something that aids in circulation.
And you bring up Titan, right? And Europa, for instance,
Sure. Yeah.
is another really good example of
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. I think that's probably what I was thinking of.
Well, Titan too, though.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and there are reasons for our suspicions of being a great candidate for supporting life.
Mhm.
Now, very cold, covered in ice, far from the sun, but the pull and the gravity of Jupiter and in some cases Saturn causes the interior to always be in motion, and that there would be heat on the inside underneath, and it's not going to be a solid mass of ice that there
Mhm.
is. And okay, so that okay, all right, but, and here's the but, uh, there's not going to be much oxygen there. There's not going to be any light for energy creation, right, or absorption. But we have the exact same things going on here on this planet.
Absolutely. Yeah. Go down to the deepest trenches and you've got the same thing. Yeah. We have tube worms that are living with, their base something like 500 degrees warmer than the top of them. I mean, a 500-degree temperature difference in this one organism, and it can survive in that. We have them living in sulfuric acid.
Yeah, sulfuric acid and
Yeah.
high pH extremes, and sulfur and everything else, and they thrive.
Yeah. Yeah, an
Yeah,
entire ecosystem thriving down there. So sure. Yeah. I mean, like they say in Jurassic Park, life will find a way.
it always does, doesn't it? And that's another fascinating thing. Let's go there for a second. After we have some type of disaster situation,
Mhm.
volcano goes off,
Sure.
a wildfire comes through, earthquake, tidal, whatever it is, right? And everything is wiped out until spring, right? Right?
Yeah.
And it's just like boom, everything just you can't stop life, can you?
No, we think of it as a world-ending event, and there's a human there's an ending of humans, but it doesn't end the world, and it doesn't stop life from, continually evolving and changing. I mean, we've this planet has gone through multiple mass extinctions where we've lost, up to 90% or more of all life on Earth, and
And
still come back from it.
a couple thousand years later, we have 10,000 new species.
Yeah, absolutely.
New, new,
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, completely different, completely unique and different. I mean, you look at what the what animals look like back in the Cambrian explosion and back in the even before that, and totally different, totally alien looking life, something that we would never picture as any recognized species. But that's something survived and something
six,
continued to change. And
65 million years ago, if we that would be a good time travel experiment.
oh
Going back
yeah,
to see how the pyramids were built, that's one thing. Jump back to 65 million years ago, and see the dinosaurs, and then of course the asteroid impact, and what environmentally what happened to this planet, because it wasn't just killing off the dinosaurs, it was the atmosphere, what
oh
was in
yeah.
the atmosphere, what we were breathing. I'm not so sure that humans could have breathed the air.
No, no, no. The oceans turned to acid. I
Yeah,
mean, it was yeah,
right.
yeah. The amount of ash it turned the oceans to acid, and yeah, the air was unbreathable for most vertebrate life.
And then it allowed everything cleared out, and we had a different atmosphere than we had when the dinosaurs were here.
Yeah, yeah. You open up new niches, and something comes in to fill them. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? It's
Yeah. Oh,
just
I love it. I mean, that's what evolutionary biology is my one of my favorite things in the world for exactly that reason. It's amazing how it finds, life will find a little foothold, and that's all that it needs to, completely blossom and change into
now.
something totally different.
Okay, so now let's talk punk music. So here's the deal. Here's the deal. How did humans, modern Homo sapiens sapien, you and I, get here? Because if we go back in the fossil record, and 200,000 years ago,
Mhm.
150,000, 200,000, we can't even really get to 210,000 years, right? 200,000 years is a blip in
Yeah,
time, but that's where you and I appeared and allowed for punk music to evolve.
it's true.
Right?
Did you see the new? So just this week they had a new. They published this find out of oh boy, I forget the cave in South Africa, but they've now shown that this is up to 300,000 years ago. The hominid culture there did purposeful burials and cave markings
Cave
up
markings.
up to 300,000 years ago.
That's
About
crazy to me. That's
100,000 years before we knew that any of that was happening, and it was not Homo sapiens. It was
right, 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 right,
not
right.
Denisovians. I forget the actual species, but yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, and we're finding out more and more about us. But let's go. Okay, but let's stay.
And they evolved into Joey and Johnny and Marky and CJ.
How is it that 200,000 years ago we just appeared? You
I
know,
don't think we did.
well, but there's no evolution. If you go with I'm not an anthropologist, I play one on TV, okay, but I'm pretty effective at it. But if we go with Darwin's and other accepted ideas with anthropology and evolution, then there would have been millions and if not tens of millions of years of us to develop our beautiful faces and our physique, no hair, right? And just things. But we just appeared overnight. And
No,
that's
not necessarily. There's, Gould has punctuated equilibrium is his kind of he tweaked Darwin's concept, Darwin and Wallace's concept, to go with a punctuated equilibrium where there's more peaks and valleys. So there it would be likely to see something change that seems a little bit more drastic and then a little bit gradual and then drastic and then gradual. And there's a lot of species that show that as well, where there's gaps in the fossil record for sure, but we can go back pretty, and we can pretty well see from tree shrew all the way to modern humans without too many gaps and being able to see how this happened.
it's all guesswork, though.
Well,
It's all guess. Okay, I love this conversation because this is and punctuated equilibrium and gold and when he came along with that idea, he pissed off a lot of the world. That
Sure.
I
So did
that I
Darwin.
right, it was, and now we're kind of going, man, he might have actually had this right. So if we stay with that, let's go back to humans again. We suddenly showed up with 46 chromosome pairs. And with it's not like
No, because I mean we don't know. You can't get DNA from that long ago and be able to tell what we don't know the DNA of our oldest ancestors.
that's my point.
But it is a slow and gradual process to get there. Like we can see, Denisovians. You can see the change from the fossils before to the fossils after, and you can see, Neanderthals. We can see the evolution. We can see the gradual change from there. Yes, there may be some, jumps, but they're not as drastic as it's not, a chimp one day and a human the next. There is a lot of stages in between, and we do have a pretty good fossil record for human evolution.
Okay, so I disagree. And this is why I disagree. Okay, Lucy is pretty cool.
Mhm.
I mean, that was a fantastic discovery.
Absolutely.
Unbelievable. But it was 3.5 million years ago. And to go from Lucy to us in that short of a period of time doesn't fit. That's not an evolutionary process. And when you look at Neanderthal and you look at Cro-Magnon and you look at us, that's two different. There is an evolutionary process there. We just appeared. So what I am suggesting is that maybe we had maybe an extraterrestrial DNA snip that might have created us, took us from 48 pairs, right, to 46, which to me, there's a lot of information in those pairs. There's a
Mhm.
lot. Um, that was removed from us. And when you look at other primates that are sitting at 48, why aren't they inventing a new version of the internet? Why do you understand where we just come along and dominate so quickly? And it appears that to me from the outside looking in that we were just dropped off. Maybe it was a meteorite. I
Yeah.
can't explain.
I would say rats are more successful than humans at dominating the world. So, I mean, insects, the weevils, there's, what is it, 120,000 or 60,000 species of weevils. So, I mean, we do like to give ourselves a lot of credit and say that we have, we have taken over the earth. I think that we're very destructive towards the earth, and there are certainly a huge number of humans, and we are great at adapting our environment to us, which allows us to go into a lot of different environments, which there's a number of species that can't. But there's a lot of worldwide species that have managed to take over better than we have. We just and as far as intelligence goes, I mean, you were talking about it earlier. There are different ways to measure intelligence, different ways to think about intelligence. Are we more intelligent than an octopus because we've designed the internet? Most people would say yes, but the octopuses are less likely to destroy their entire species as well. So there's that argument also.
Yeah, if you gave octopus fire, right? That's all you need. That's all you need. That's all you need. If
Wouldn't do great underwater.
that's what's held them back.
That's what's holding them back.
Held them back. If you gave octopus fire, it'd be over. It would be the movie Arrival, right?
It's true.
It would
It's
be.
true. There was a great series on Discovery Channel a few years ago that was it was projecting into the future and what could after humans, and they did have cephalopods taking over and becoming a human-like species. They have them swinging through the trees and different tribes fighting each other, and yeah, I mean there's the potential.
Watching, I go back. Arrival, even though it's a newer movie,
Mhm.
I think it's an instant classic, and
Yeah.
I watch it all the time. I think there's some kind of message there, and I'm still trying to figure it out. But aliens were cephalopods. And when that first scene, when she walks up to the glass and they come out of the smoke, right?
Yeah.
And approach, and they're walking on, right? What cephalopod? Aha, I knew it. 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 And I think that's when the press release, Pat, came out. It was about 5 years ago, where these biologists from around the world got together and said, all of our species we can kind of make sense of, pretty much, except for octopus. Octopus doesn't fit. Octopus may be ET. Octopus may have been dropped off here. It's the one species that doesn't fit. Do you agree with that?
Well, I mean, we do have a pretty good evolutionary path for cephalopods as well. There's a great book this woman wrote. I think it's called Squid Empire, and that's the entire book is about the evolution of squid and octopus, and it is really fascinating. They started with shells. Nautilus is one of the most ancient forms of them. So we do have that, but they are very, very strange. They are really surreal, and the ability to change their shape and to change their color, in a millisecond is pretty impressive, and they are very smart.
World Bigfoot Radio is in the house tonight. Says the good aliens in Galaxy Quest were also octopi.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, and for us to evolve into what we are today, which I think is either we accept academia that it was all just an accident, or that there might be something more grand, right?
Well,
And I think I'm going to say on the safe side of history on this one. I think in the future we're going to find out that we had help from out there. I think that's a much easier explanation than lightning hitting a DNA strand on a chunk of crystal in a lake bed in South Africa. I'm not buying into that. I think that we had some help, and I'm okay. I'm
yeah,
okay.
I mean, panspermia is a really fascinating area of study, and but I do tend to go with a very classic evolutionary biology. We named my son is Wallace Charles after Charles Darwin and Alfred Russell Wallace.
Right.
And Charles Fort, Charles Darwin, Alfred Russell Wallace.
Charles Fort. There's a good one. That was a good one. I was
my great uncle.
Yes, did you? It's great, right? So
it's beyond that. It's my grandmother's great uncle. So whatever that would make, great, I think.
But man, you got some good DNA, man. You got some good DNA.
I hope.
Do you find yourself thinking outside of the box? Is it into your DNA?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's been my entire life since I was a little kid. I was the weird little kid, as I think no one would be surprised to hear, and fascinated by all wildlife, and the crazier and creepier the better. So that's what got me into cryptozoology. Really, was looking at the deep sea creatures and bats and snakes and lizards and kind of creepy crawlies, spiders, all that. And my grandmother used to say when I was growing up, "Oh, you're just like your Uncle Charlie." And I had no idea who Uncle Charlie was when I was growing up. I didn't know.
Do you read the books?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got them all right here. Yeah, I've got signed by him, actually.
Oh man, okay. For the audience, they may not know what we're talking about.
Charles Fort, the Book of the Damned. Oh,
yeah, they know 40 in times, right? They know that. But they don't know what we're talking about here. So let's take it back. Tell us about Charles and why Fortean now is part of pop culture.
Sure, absolutely. So Charles Fort is the godfather of the paranormal, and the prophet Charles Fort. So he was kind of the first person to give credence to some of the stranger things that people had been reporting. He did most of his research from libraries, but he did do some world travel and some travel to investigate on his own. But most of it was just looking at these stories and trying to come up with a rational explanation for something that science seemed to just write off. And in some cases, he was absolutely correct. People had been telling stories of ball lightning for centuries, and no one took it seriously. They thought that these were ghost stories. This is just, but it is a true phenomena that really happens. Raining fish, raining frogs. These were the things. Charles Fort was the first to really document these and to collect stories from around the world and say, no, this is a real phenomena that's happening. Let's try to theorize how and why. So taking not quite a scientific approach to it, but at least documenting it and giving credence to this and putting this out there and saying, why is science writing this off, science collectively? Why are they writing this off without even investigating? And that's kind of where I take that from Charles Fort as well, is, why write something off without even looking into it? How can we say that this is impossible without even, looking into what, if it's not real, then what could this be mistaken for?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
And he invented the term teleportation.
That's right.
That was Charles Fort.
That was Charles Fort. And so it's in your DNA, man. I think it's one of the coolest things like ever. I mean, I don't know if I had a choice of who I would want as my great great uncle, but Charles Fort would be high on that list, my man.
No, it really is very cool. I was really excited, and I didn't find out until after I had read his books. So I was reading them, and my grandmother, who had told me I was like my Uncle Charlie, she saw me reading the Book of the Damned and said, "That's your Uncle Charlie." I said, "What are you talking about? That's Charles Fort." I said, So, and then she brought out all the books and some other paraphernalia and some family photos, tintypes and things of his. And I had absolutely no idea.
Now, you brought up panspermia a couple of times, and it is a subject that I address constantly. And so let me just explain something. You're my guest. I don't want to take up your time here, but just so you understand where my mind is coming from. I know I've seen things. We are being visited by friends from outer space. I know this is a fact for me. All right. I'm chasing this down, but I'm also fascinated with science. And the more that I try to find out this information, it keeps pulling me over to science and pulling me over to science. And one of the things that supports my view is amino acids and RNA. And amino acids and basic sugars and RNA, which we can't happen. Our DNA does not happen unless RNA tells it what to do. It's that simple. And this stuff is arriving on our planet on space rocks. And it's like, wait a minute here. That's exactly when we go back and we're talking about panspermia. It's one thing to have it as a theory, and it's another thing to prove it as fact, which we have. And our second trip from Bennu, an asteroid, is going to be here in September. Everything that we have studied that has fallen on this planet looking for this stuff, it's there, which means DNA, RNA, these basic things in life not only survive the vacuum of space, but it's everywhere, which means DNA must be universal. And that's where I'm coming from with all of this. I don't think life is an accident, and I think it exists everywhere.
So, with what's been found on meteorites, I have read a few different reports and a few different things on is it contamination since it's entered Earth's atmosphere, or was it there previously? And I don't think that anyone's definitively shown one answer or the other.
Except Japan's recent delivery 3 months ago from an asteroid that had all of the basic sugars and amino acids intact from an asteroid in space.
That's amazing. I haven't read that. I'll have to look that up.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So Bennu, which is the second asteroid that was a United States international trip to this giant asteroid. We've collected samples off of that, and those samples are going to be here in January. If it's a repeat of what was just discovered three months ago, then I don't think that there's any question about what may be happening. That RNA, the basic, it's those basic sugars, right? It's all you really need to jumpstart anything on a planet that's got an atmosphere that can accept it. And it's a crazy thought that it's not it's everywhere.
There was a study a few years ago where they tried to recreate what the Earth would the conditions that the Earth would have been in, shortly after it cooled enough to have liquid on the surface, and they didn't let it go for millions of years, but in the process, and I forget if it was completely on a computer or if they actually did this in the lab. I'm not completely remembering, but they did show where amino acids could come from the ooze, from the sludge, and where this it had the potential to be building up to create self-replicating RNA or DNA.
Yeah, and which is again what I always like to do is how long. Right. So Earth, you said 3.5 billion years. I don't think it was quite that
No,
long.
I thought it was 11. I think it's actually no. That's the universe is 11. I think Earth is. Oh man, I'm out of my depth.
No, that's okay. The universe is 13.8
There we go.
years
Yeah.
old. Our solar system is 5 billion years old. Earth and our sun are about the same age right now at about 4.5 billion years.
Mhm.
Once the Earth cooled and we got rid of the lava, because that's all it was. We're bombarded by comets and ice and water and things, and it changed. And so about 2 billion years ago, the Earth cooled, and we had a situation here where life could start to get a foothold. But to me, I don't think 2 billion years is long enough for me to go from accidental chemistries, right, and particle combinations into Black Flag playing in Long Beach Arena. I don't.
There is something transcendental about Black Flag playing in Long Beach.
Oh man, but you know what I mean, and how if we look at I'm going to stay on the oceans for a second, but if we take a look at 1900, right, that's 100 years ago, one lifetime ago, right, it's 125 years ago, but in 60 years 60 years, we went from horse and buggies and gas lamps in 1900, right? Oil lamps.
Yeah.
To Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, no, the technological advances are shocking and staggering.
Crazy to think about.
Yeah.
You could have been born in 1890, right? You could have been born in 1890 and then went to Woodstock, and what you would have seen in your lifetime. That's remarkable to me. I mean, that's just crazy.
Yeah, and the technological changes. They say that, if you were born in the 1600s or the 1700s, it probably wouldn't have been that different than if you were born in the early to mid 1800s.
That's right.
Even 1500s to mid 1800s, not massively different. You would still recognize the essential technology that people were using. Yes, there were huge advances. There was, indoor plumbing and other things that were massive advances, but still essentially the same. Whereas if you go 1950 to today,
two different worlds.
Two different worlds.
Two completely different worlds. Now, one of the things that is being talked about in the UFO community and the Department of Defense and Congress and Arrow and the CIA is that some of, not all, but some of what we may have normally attributed as a UFO, unidentified flying object, something from outer space, may actually be USOs. And their origins are from our oceans, and we just haven't discovered them yet. You spend a lot of time under the water. We were joking about that earlier. The ocean's a big place. Would it surprise you if ET was hiding from us in the vastness of the Atlantic or the Pacific?
The deepest parts of the ocean are the most unexplored regions of our world. So there could be a lot hiding down there that we're not aware of. I would be surprised to find an intelligent society, a human-like intelligent society down there, just because I think that we would have had contact. I don't think that it would be something that could stay hidden for too long, because just like we have gone down there, they would be coming up here as well, should they evolve like that. And I think that a few sightings here and there wouldn't really be enough for me at this point to say that there is an intelligent society living in the deepest parts of the ocean. But finding unknown creatures down there, finding large unknown creatures, I think is a given. There are definitely big things living under the ocean that we have not found yet. Probably other types of squid.
Right, right. But why allude to this if you're the government or you're the Department of Defense or you're the United States Navy, and you start making these suggestions that, well, maybe they're from here. It's like, well, wait a minute. What is it that you know? And it seems that I know this is out of your wheelhouse, but it seems that they have zeroed in on a specific location where there is ingress and egressing of objects in the Atlantic Ocean, that they have seen this happen and occur. That's the part that I find really, really fascinating, that if you were going to visit this planet, right, and you needed to hide from us because they know now that we have the ability to shoot them down, and we will, right? It's a fact. Wouldn't you, if you were ET, wouldn't you hide where you could? And
the ocean seemed like a good place to hide.
it's exactly right.
Yeah,
Now,
if you got the technology for interstellar travel, then I'm the technology to go under the water is probably a little bit easier.
well, you did one thing. I'm going to ask you about this. I have a bad case of claustrophobia, and I have been facing my fears with that. I've done a couple of things lately that I swore I would never do. Now going spelunking, I don't know if that's in my future yet, but I'm getting close. So for one of my TV shows on History Channel, we get this research ship. We head out to the Pacific. One of the suggestions, and this happened to me twice, was, okay, so we're going to get a small submersible, 2-3 person submersible, and we're going to send you down. I was like, what's your idea? And well, you're not going to go that far. It's going to be about 500 feet, maybe 1,000 feet, depends on this. Well, who's going to be on this? Well, you and a camera guy and the
pilot.
Yeah, no. I'm changing. We're into rewrite on this script right now, but you've done that.
Coolest thing I ever did in my life. Absolutely.
Walk me through that, and can you ease? Obviously, you don't have issues with claustrophobia, or do you?
No. It was I was like a little kid in a candy shop. I was way too excited to be scared or nervous or have any fear other than just pure joy. I mean, as a marine biologist, it was the thing that I'd wanted to do my entire life, is to go explore the depths. And to have the chance to go down in a three-person sub, 1,000 feet underwater, it was wild. So I, um I convinced the production company to do it, because it was really expensive to do this. And after kind of begging and pleading and making my case, I'll eat nothing but power bars. I'll sleep in the worst hotels. I'll sleep in the back of the car. I'll drive us. Finally convinced them to do this. And we see the sub, and it was going to be me and our and the director, and we had to lay on these cots. So you can't even stand up or sit up straight. We're just laying on these cots facing forward with our heads, looking out into the ocean. And then the pilot sits kind of where our knees are. So our legs are extending past him, and he's sitting there with the little controls like this, like driving the thing. And it was just unreal. It was better than I ever imagined. We were down there for a few hours, and I got to see lion's mane jellyfish. I got to see a couple different species of squid. I got to see squat lobsters and a whole bunch of different worms, and just things that I had been fascinated with since I was a little kid. And I was not. It was it's darkness like you've never experienced.
Right.
I've been camping in the middle of the Gobi Desert, and this is darkness like I've never ever seen before. There's no, just a complete and total absence of light, and that's only 1,000 feet down.
Man, that's how do you was there like Xanax involved? I mean, how
I think they would have wanted me to be on something, because I was so excited. I was rambling and basically unable to speak. And unable to speak coherently. I was so excited. But after a couple hours, we're laying there. And so my producer is this guy Ben, who has been everywhere and done everything. I mean, you can't find a guy who has better stories than Ben. He's been locked up in an Afghan prison for breaking into a former Russian chemical weapons facility. This guy is wild. And he's sitting there, so nothing phases him. Nothing. Everything just rolls off his back. And when we're down there for about 2 hours, he just poked me in the arm, and I looked over, and he goes, "Pat, this is cool." Wow. Then I know it's unique.
I'm getting anxiety just thinking about that. Okay, so I was watching a movie the other day, and it doesn't matter, some horror film, Egypt, ghost inside of these tunnels, and they're going through, and so one, and he goes, "Okay, so now you got to crawl through that cave, and you got to do it on your belly with your flashlight." And I'm watching. I was like, "Nope, I ain't. That's it. I'm turning the channel. I can't deal. I can't." And listening to this right now, I get anxious thinking about it. What's the escape plan?
Oh, there is none.
There is none.
No,
right?
you're dead. Yeah, if something goes wrong, you're dead. And that's but you're not thinking of that in the moment. I mean, you can say that about so many different things. You get on a plane, if something goes wrong, you're dead. Driving into Boston, if something goes wrong, you're dead. We kind of accept this level of risk. I'm with you on the caving aspect of it. I've done a very, very little bit of caving, but once it gets to the point where you have to suck in and move your chest to the side in order to fit through a crevice, too many things can go wrong there. Too many things that I'm very, very clumsy. And if it's going to be one of those things where I move wrong, and then I have what's the James Franco movie where I have to cut off his arm? I don't want to be in that situation.
Right. I have a buddy of mine. He has a TV show called Cities of the Underworld, right?
Oh yeah.
And there was, so we're hanging out anyway. So I'm watching, his next episode, and I am not making this up. So he goes and he flashes his flashlight, and it was a crack. I'm going to say it was about this tall, but it was flat and wide, like 100 yards wide and really deep. And, this crack in this rock, and he's going to squeeze into there and then get to the other side. And it's like 50, you can't even see.
Yeah.
And he's flat on, I don't know how his cameraman or whatever, I had to turn it off.
Yeah.
And he's on his his back is touching the ceiling and he's squeezing through. I just can't. You would be okay with that?
No, I would not. That's
Oh,
where I would draw. I would not be. So it's something where if I mess up, it will cause mine or someone else's death. I have a big problem with it. Going down in the sub, I have no control over that. I have every faith in this pilot. He's done it a whole bunch of times. I'm fine with that. I will say though, after a couple hours, we're laying there, and all of a sudden I felt water dripping on my legs. And Ben felt it at the same time because we both looked at each other like we were in, absolutely enthralled, just loving this. And then we get this moment of kind of terror, and that did really freak me out. But the pilot knew what it was. It was just, and he let us freak out for a second, and he said, "Ah, it's just condensation. It's going up to the top, and it's dripping down on you." But
how long does it take us to surface?
yeah, that was. He said, "Oh, I just need to plug in. I'm sorry. I just realized my plug somehow fell out. There we go." So the pilot said, he goes, "What's that?" Like just to kind of freak us out. And he goes, "I'm just joking." He goes, "If this thing had sprung a leak, you'd be dead before you even knew it."
What is it's one thing to go 1,000 feet, in a 3-man submersible, and then it's a whole other thing altogether to have something like Loch Ness, Lake Champlain, and these ideas, Bigfoot too. We can throw that right in there. Is there a possibility of something surviving in Loch Ness and remaining undiscovered? Do you believe in the Loch Ness monster?
No, so I've been to Loch Ness, and it's gorgeous, and I would strongly encourage everybody to go and get some of the best, scotch that you've ever had in your life, and cider, and some amazing food, and it's an absolutely beautiful place. But no, I don't think there's anything in there bigger than salmon and maybe the salmon, eels, and maybe the occasional seal. But I mean, I think that that's where we can get most of the sightings. So the Loch Ness, one of the really interesting things are how the stories have changed over the years, and how a lot of the historical sightings of the Loch Ness monster, if we read them, we would never recognize it as the same thing that people picture as the Loch Ness monster. Some of them happen miles inland, and they're described as, being like a lion or being like a deer, or and it's nothing like the classic kind of image, but people still attribute them to the Loch Ness monster because they happened in the general vicinity of Loch Ness. So I think that they're great stories, and it's an amazing place to be. But no, I think unfortunately, the final pin in that coffin for me is the eDNA research that they did a couple years ago, when they showed lots and lots of eel DNA. So some of the sightings are probably larger eels that people are seeing, or a group of eels. We know that eels will sometimes get together into these huge groups that can look like one undulating animal itself. So a lot more eel DNA than anyone expected, and some salmon and salmon relatives, but nothing unexplained.
The other day I did a show on mega sharks.
Oh
Right.
yeah, megalodon, and yeah.
Well, a little bit about megalodon, but mainly about giant sharks.
Mhm.
And I don't know if megalodon has survived. It's possible. I don't know, but one thing is for sure, and there have been measurements of bite marks out of whales from giant sharks that are 4 foot, which and there's 3 different locations around the world where these bite marks have happened, and the estimates on these sharks are up to 40, 42, 46 feet in length, and that those are a giant an exception, just like we have tall humans, right, that are 9 feet tall. And those are the exceptions and not the rules, but it certainly shows us that we have sharks out there that are up to 40 feet with a 4 foot bite radius. I mean, that's crazy, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So I mean, I hate to be the wet blanket on anything. And I'm sure that there are larger sharks than we've seen, absolutely. But bite marks are one of those really difficult indicators to really draw great conclusions from, because it's hard to know what angle it came in at, and it's hard to know if the animal grew after the bite or if something else stretched the skin or did that. So the estimates are that they are estimates based on those bites. But I'm sure that there are very large sharks out there, bigger than what we've seen. There's no way that we have seen the largest great white that is in the oceans.
You know what? You know what my bite mark argument is, though. About growing. I got bit by a German Shepherd on my left knee when I was 5 years old, 6 years old. Tore my leg up, man, and these 2 teeth marks, right, are still right there, right. Those haven't grown.
I had the opposite. I got bitten by a dog when I was younger on my leg too, and now it looks like it was, a Cujo that attacked me, and really it was a skipper key. The little black fox dog's little skipper key.
Yeah, really.
But yeah, I think it depends on the bite, depends on the individual, depends on the angle that it came in at, and how many layers it got through and all that. So
yeah. Now I'm not talking about bite marks in the skin. I'm talking about chunks
out of them. Yeah.
And so you can see the other bite marks that are smaller, right? And then anyway, my point being, though, that there are some ginormous things that are swimming around in this ocean. And when we look at the idea and the science behind cryptozoology, we have to keep an open mind with this. Everything is so unexplored.
Absolutely. Look at megamouth sharks. So megamouth sharks were only found in the 70s, and I believe we've only found a dozen of them. And it's one of the largest species of fish in the ocean. I mean,
filmed once, right?
Sorry?
Filmed once.
Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely remarkable. And think about oarfish. I mean, oarfish, people say up to 60 feet long. People say up to 40 feet long. Either way, it's a giant animal. I was able to do an MRI scan on an oarfish. But this is something that up until 2017, 16, 17, no one had filmed one in its natural habitat before. And now, we've had less than 5 that have ever been filmed. And these are, they theoretically live all over the world in the open ocean. I mean, we know very little about the deep sea, but we know very little about the open ocean as well.
Our guest tonight is Pat Spain. Pat, we're going to take a quick break right here. We'll be right back. Tonight we're talking about cryptozoology. When we come back, I'm going Bigfoot. Bigfoot with Pat Spain. We'll be right back. Stay with us. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Please visit all of our sponsors. We're taking a quick break here. All of the links are below. We'll be right back. Join us November 10th, 11th, and 12th, 2023 as Disclosure Fest Foundation and Fade to Black Radio presents Stairway to the Stars, a Human Origins Science and Technology Expo, live at the Luxor Hotel and Casino on the Las Vegas Strip. With live talks, lectures, and workshops by world-acclaimed researchers and authors. This is Jimmy Church, by the way, and I'll be your host all weekend long. Featuring topics like human origins, ancient technologies, indigenous teachings, workshops, a mass meditation, yoga and sound healing, music, and so much more. Don't miss our intimate sky watch and meteor shower over the infamous Area 51 airspace in Rachel, Nevada, with special surprise celebrity hosts guiding us through the night. Also introducing our Disclosure Fest VR Starship area with dozens of rides. You've got to check it out. This event will sell out. For more information and tickets, please visit disclosurefest.org. The secret is out. LifeWave's X39 is the reason why I have got my vision back. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you need to go straight to healingworksnow.com. That's healingworksnow.com. Works with an X. All of the information that you need is on that portal. Find out why I look great. I feel great. I'm thinking clearly. I sleep. I dream. Life is good. all of it. You've got to check out LifeWave's X39 and all of their other products. It's all simple to do. Go to healingworksnow.com. That's healingworksnow.com. Works with an X.
Hey everybody, it's Billy Carson, also known as Forbidden Knowledge. I want to talk to you about a very special event coming up July 30th, 2023, the Forbidden Conscious Awards. We're going to honor people who have been contributing to the conscious community for decades. People that you know and love that have helped you get to higher levels of thought and consciousness and awareness. It's going to be a live in-person event, but seats are going to sell out very fast. You want to make sure you're there in person, and guess what? You can help vote for the winners. Voting is available on forbiddenknowledge.com, and the categories are going to be social media influencer, podcast/radio host, TV host, actor, director, producer, entrepreneurs, health and wellness, philanthropists, authors, field researchers, archaeologists, space anomaly hunters, and of course, a Lifetime Achievement Award. I'll be your keynote speaker that night at the Forbidden Conscious Awards. We have celebrity guests performing. We'll have a halftime show where we're actually going to perform music for you. And don't forget about the pre-event mixer, where if you buy a box seat, you'll be in the VIP section, and you also have private access to a VIP mixer with celebrity guests. Shake hands, break bread, network, and then walk the red carpet with us and take amazing photos. It's gonna be a night to remember. You don't wanna forget this. Make sure you hurry up and get your tickets because they're selling out very fast. I wanna see you there. Forbidden Conscious Awards 2023.
River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right. Welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Pat's. I almost did it again.
It's all right.
That's okay. Pat Spain's with us. Pat, he sees the guitars and he goes, man. By the way, Pat, every guest that I have on the show, they look at the guitars. You know, the first thing they say.
What's that?
I was in a band in high school.
Well, yeah.
I was in a band in high school, and Pat was in a punk band, played bass.
I was, yeah, bass and screaming.
Okay. Before we move on to Bigfoot and cryptozoology, who is? I'm going to have mine ready to go. Who is the greatest punk bass player of all time?
Matt Freeman from Rancid, no doubt.
Really?
Oh yeah. You listen to Maxwell Murder. There's no one. I don't think anyone could hold a candle to him.
Okay. I'm gonna go with man. Oh God, it's a tough one. I'm gonna go with. Hold on for a second. No, I just had a second thought. Here. I just had a second thought, and I am going to just stay with me. Yeah, no, wait a minute. I'm gonna go with man, I can see okay. This is for aesthetic reasons.
All right.
Mike Dern.
Oh yeah, he's great.
And dude, because when he hikes up 1 foot on the monitor,
oh yeah,
you know what I mean.
He is the image of the punk bassist for sure. Absolutely. Oh yeah, perfect.
Aesthetic of it.
Yeah,
he's the bass player for Green Day.
Yeah,
and everybody. And so I was going to go in a couple of directions, but he just popped in my head. And
people throw the Descendants out there, and I think they're amazing. They're great. But yeah, Matt Freeman, he is wow.
Yeah. And I you're right about that, though. Man, Rancid was such a good band. is.
They are.
Such a
New album just came out this week.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Wow, that's wild. The world. Okay, this is how fascinating it is about connecting the dots. When you have somebody like Tom DeLonge and Blink 182,
Oh yeah.
okay, and the success of all of that, and then for him to walk away from Blink into the world of UFOs and jump in feet first, right? Where I think that musicians in general, and in this case, punk musicians, but well, you can call him more like commercial punk. But anyway,
Hey, I mean, they were schooled by Pennywise and came up through the ranks with no effects. Yeah.
yeah,
I won't hold anything against Blink. I think they did a great job.
you know what? Every song that they ever did was a toe tapper.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
Yeah. To write choruses that that's a tough thing, man, and it's a whole other thing to write stuff that the whole world understands.
Absolutely.
And that's what Blink did. But musicians have an open mind when it comes to this stuff,
Yeah.
and there's an attraction there. You have to be able to get into the zone, and that's where consciousness comes in, meditation comes in. I think ET, and then cryptozoology and ghosts and life after death. I think musicians understand this better than most, don't you?
Yeah, you've been on tour. You see weird stuff when you're on tour. You see things that most people don't see. You experience things that most people don't see. When you're up on stage, it's an experience. It's something, you're interacting with a huge crowd, with a huge group of people. It's not the same as having a one-on-one conversation or even being in a group and having a large conversation. It's a completely different thing. And you do experience a different aspect of humanity than I think most people get the chance to. So I think part of that does open your mind to other things that a lot of people haven't experienced.
When you enter into the classification of cryptozoologists, and then you have the educated crowd out there too as well, that will now say, he's fringe. Man, I can't take that guy serious now. Right. What's your definition of a cryptozoologist?
Yeah, so I don't think it really differs very much from biology. I mean, all biologists are cryptozoologists. I think Darren Naish really puts it best, where he says cryptozoology is a mix of biology and anthropology. And I think that that's the perfect way to say it, is that cryptozoology is biology, but there's a little bit of cultural anthropology and a little bit of mythology and a little bit of looking into different belief systems as well, kind of thrown into the biological mix. But at the end of the day, it just is biology. I mean, when we're talking about undiscovered creatures,
sure. And then, but you're going to have some biologists look at you and go, "Man, you're just looking for chupacabra."
Yeah, but I mean, there's always the naysayers. There's always the people in everything that they want everything to be neat and tidy, and the world isn't. Earth isn't neat and tidy. When I was 11, 12, something like that, I found a cottonmouth snake about 200 miles north of their accepted range. And nobody believed me. No one thought. And I brought it to a herpetologist and showed it to him. And he went, "Oh, you got one. That's a water moccasin right there." And then they accused me of bringing it up from New York City.
Of course.
So, I mean, the animals don't fit into the neat and tidy boxes that we want them to fit in. And we're still learning so much about them that I think it's really arrogant for us to think that we know it all, or that we found it all, or that something isn't going to come up and completely blow up our understanding of what we thought we knew about these animals.
Well, what are you in search of?
In regards to
cryptozoology?
Oh yeah, I mean,
you've got to have a list. You've got to have a bucket list.
Yeah, so I did a show on the National Geographic Channel called Beast Hunter, and I worked with a production company, Icon Films, who I love. They were the best production company in the world. And I gave them my list. These are the things that I'm the most interested in. And we kind of took that and pared it down to 10 that were, the ones that would be the most aesthetically pleasing for the audience and the ones that would be the most interesting, and then presented that to Nat Geo, and they picked the 5 of those that they were the most interested in to get the 5 episodes of Beast Hunter. But oh yeah, on my list, I mean, some of them are less exciting, I think, to mainstream. Like, I would love to go looking for thylacines, just the Tasmanian tiger that we know were there, accepted up until the 1920s. But, I think that there's still some remnant population of them around. I think there's enough pretty good sightings and evidence. And now with eDNA technology, I think we'd have a good chance of finding them. Orang pendek, the little Bigfoot of Sumatra, I think was either there very, very recently, or there's still a good chance that they are. I think that Lauren Coleman gets it right when he says that orang pendek is probably 2 distinct species, one more gibbon-like and one more hominid. And the gibbon-like one, I think, is the one that we're more likely to come across. But yeah, I think if they're not still there, then they were very, very recently. And Dr. Mike Morwood, who's the gentleman that first described Homo floresiensis, he told me as much, that he believes that they were there until that floresiensis was there until at least the 1920s, which is mind-blowing. So on one of the islands of Indonesia, I think we'd still have a pretty good chance at those. Anything in the deep ocean, new species of squid fascinate me. I keep on coming back to squid. That's the real passion ever since I was little.
Well,
and I think that we could find some.
Yeah. I don't think sailors love to tell their stories, right? And so I'm not so sure if mermaids are real. Maybe it's a possibility. But these stories of giant squid swallowing ships, and these tales of the ocean over the years, I don't think they're that far fetched.
No, I mean, we've found giant squid and colossal squid, and there are certainly other ones left to be discovered.
And we're talking big.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're talking more than 40 feet.
Yeah, we're talking big. The news, I didn't know this until a few years ago. It's a mind-blowing fact that the woolly mammoth existed up until 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, and has been found on different islands in northern Canada. That's crazy town. It doesn't fit, and it survived whatever went down the last ice age, 12,000 years ago and before. That actually, was living and walking, living, breathing creature just 5,000 short years ago.
Yeah, I mean, they think that woolly mammoths might be one of the first species that was wiped out by humans, by modern day humans.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Oh yeah. I mean, Australia, Megalania was probably wiped out by humans. There's some other, a lot of the large fauna that we think of. I think giant ground sloths, there's still a pretty good chance, I think, that there's still some down in Brazil.
Now, I love talking about UFOs. And it's dominating. ET contact is dominating the media these days, and I never thought we would be at this point. But as big as the UFO community may seem to me, right, and I'm a voice of that community, and I like my position in that community. All of that is great, but it's small compared to the Bigfoot community.
Absolutely,
the Bigfoot community is ginormous, right? but it's really true, isn't it? I mean, Bigfoot is a whole nother situation than ET and UFOs when it comes to the search of and experiences with and sightings of.
Yeah, I mean, Cliff Brackman is a friend. He's an amazing guy from Finding Bigfoot, and I think that show did a huge amount to popularize it and to get people out there. But I think also it's just it's something about it's almost representative of a still wild America, and the chance to get out there and to find something new and to still discover something that's that big and that impressive in a country that we think of as so developed, which it really isn't. I mean, when you go out west, you go out to Montana and Wyoming and way up in Idaho and kind of all over the Pacific Northwest, there's still a lot of very, very wild places left in this country that, on the East Coast, we don't often think about.
No, we don't. And until you experience the Pacific Northwest, because you can look out, you drive in your car, fly in a plane, and look out the window and go, no human has ever walked there, ever.
Yeah.
Ever. I mean,
Yeah.
it is large, forested. I spent a lot of time in Northern California in the redwoods. It is crazy remote and wild. Humans have no dominance. That's Mother Nature for sure. What do you think? Where are you on the fence with Bigfoot?
Exactly as you said, on the fence. I am on the fence. So I think I have a huge amount of respect for Jeff Meldrum and for some of the other researchers that describe the foot patterns and the some of the marks that have been found. The ridge lines and everything, and you can see the prints on the toes. I'm sorry, the dermal ridges on the feet. Yeah, and then I just look at the Patty footage. I mean, I look at the Patterson-Gimlin footage, and I still go back to that, and I cannot explain that. It just doesn't feel like a person in a suit to me. It does feel like you are looking at an unknown creature and or an undescribed creature. So I would not write it off. I think every year that goes by without stronger evidence, it makes it harder and harder to say definitively that there is a creature behind these. But was there at some point? I'd have an easier time saying that there was than there is, but I'm still on the fence with it. I haven't seen definitive evidence. I've seen a lot of DNA samples that come back as unknown or contaminated, but nothing really that comes back and points to, all of these are coming back as the same unknown, or this is all coming back as, an unidentified creature. So
If the UFO community had a piece of footage that was as definitive as the Patterson-Gimlin film, it would be case closed. Done. But yet, and you just said it yourself, right? You watch the Patterson-Gimlin film, but you're still on the fence. It does, right?
Because I think it's
because I'm the same as you, Pat. I'm the exact. I have said the exact same words that you have just spoken, and it sounds hypocritical. It sounds paradoxical. We're not listening to our own statements when we say these things, but yet we say them.
the footage isn't perfect, and it leaves a lot of questions in your mind. And there are logical answers to those questions, and I've heard those answers. It's why do we only have these few seconds? Why does it cut away just when it walks off frame? Why? And you're left with these questions, and it's the person who filmed it was afraid. The person who filmed it was on an old handheld camera that this kind of shakiness. They didn't have that much film left. There are all answers to these questions, but it still leaves something to be desired. Like it's not good. It's not a body.
It's a damn good piece of footage.
It is. It's the best that we've got. Absolutely.
It's crazy. And okay, you know what? Okay, let me ask you this. Let me tell you what does it for me in the film. All right?
Mm-hmm.
The boobs.
Yeah. Why would someone who was putting in a hoax have added that?
Not only added perfect.
Right.
I mean, it's the movement. It's the and there
the
is
glance back. Every aspect of it, every part of it is it doesn't seem like a person in a suit. That's all that it is, and it's harder. It's very hard to quantify beyond that.
Yeah, and the muscles reacting, right?
Yeah.
When you go and you look at the exact same time frame, and you look and see what was the best that Hollywood had.
Absolutely, at that time. Planet of the Apes and
Stanley Kubrick, right? 2001. Yeah. And Stanley, who is an absolute perfectionist, we understand that about him, and he shot the greatest films that were ever made.
Yeah.
still couldn't get it right. And you watch that section of 2001: A Space Odyssey, and you go, "Wow, okay, it's cool, but it's still people in monkey suits,
Yeah,
right?"
yeah, for sure.
But that's not. And then you have the Patterson Gimlin film, and they want to attribute that to a couple of cowboys on horseback that were able to pull that off. It doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't to me either. It doesn't.
How would Bigfoot are they that smart? Now you're on the fence. Okay. I'm not on the same fence as you. I'm on the fence, but I'm on the fence between a species that is avoiding human, just a species avoiding human,
Sure.
and something that's interdimensional and walking through portals and vortexes and visiting us. That's what I'm on the fence in between. When you say that you're on the fence, what are you in between?
I'm in between it being an actual animal and being a passed down myth and story, and something that's very important to different cultures and to indigenous groups, and something that has a lot of historical significance, but is not a real flesh and blood creature, like a thunderbird. A thunderbird is an incredibly important animal to certain groups of people, but there is no evidence, belief, etc. Even those groups would say that this is a spirit animal. It is not a real flesh and blood creature.
Have you seen a Bigfoot print yourself?
Yeah.
Okay, so have I. And before I saw the Bigfoot print, I wasn't a believer. Okay, I wasn't. Even after the Patterson Gimlin film and doing the thousands of shows and everything, I was like, eh. And then I saw my first Bigfoot print. And
I've never seen one in the wild. I've seen them like at conferences, and I've seen the casts and things like that. No, I've never found one in the wild.
Dude, I saw one in the wild.
That's amazing.
Well, I didn't make the discovery. Some kids did. We were with a group, and they came up to me and said, "Hey, Jimmy, you want to see a Bigfoot print?" I was like, "Man, kid, don't bother me, man. Just go over there." No, I don't want to go see no Bigfoot print. Hey, Jimmy, you trying over there? No, I'm busy, man. Right. and I walked over and looked down, dude, this deep in the ground.
Yeah.
In the grass. And I'm looking at it. I put my foot up next to it. Now I'm 6 foot, 200 pounds, 200 plus. I'm not making a dent in this grass.
Right.
Right. I'm looking down at this fresh print, and it's this deep. It's that deep.
Where?
This is in Washington, right off the Columbia River.
Yeah.
Yeah. And wow. And we ended up finding 4 in an arch. And now this is where I go interdimensional on you. There were no prints before or after. Right? We searched in this field, right? Now we found the 4, and they were just kind of curving left, right, right? And they were like 6 feet apart, by the way. And I'm gonna guess and say, what's that? 1.5 feet? I think they were quite 2 feet long. I'll show you pictures later. But anyway, it looked like dude just dropped off. Right. It's like appeared and then took a couple of steps and then vanished.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. And that's where I go, man, is there something ghostly here? Is there something interdimensional? Am I really going into this zone? But that's what the evidence kind of shows me here. Is that visiting Crazy Town?
No. I mean, I have seen other animals have that as well. I mean, it depends on the topography of the land. It depends on the way that they were moving. It depends on the footfalls. How heavy they were, how light they were, how wet the ground was, and that can change from one step to the next. So I wouldn't think that would. I would not go towards that direction just based on only finding a few prints in one spot.
But Chewbacca's real.
Chewbacca from Star Wars?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. He's
Chewbacca.
supposed to be a great guy.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a great guy. And I can't figure that part out where so there's the community is so big.
Mhm.
And talking to these different Bigfoot researchers and witnesses and friends of mine
Oh yeah. Yeah.
that have told their stories. I mean, that have nothing to do with this community, but it seems like everybody's got a Bigfoot story and they have seen something out in the wild that they can't explain.
Yeah.
And I don't know. This is something I'm trying to figure out.
So I think when there is such a large community, I think you are more likely to get some mistaken identity. So there's some people who see a grizzly or see, something else. I mean, people see house cats and think that they're mountain lions. This happens a lot. It's very well documented. People who aren't used to seeing animals, any animals in the wild, your mind jumps to other conclusions. But all there needs to be is one real sighting. There needs to be one real one. And there's enough people who have a lot of experience with wildlife, between hunters and biologists and field researchers and Bigfoot researchers who know all of the other animals in the area, who have seen something that's why I'm on the fence. That's why, it's hard. It's hard to say why we don't have better evidence right now, but it's also just as hard to say, well, what are people seeing then? What
Well,
is
I can bring up the panda,
Mhm.
right?
Oh yeah, I mean, in any of the forested areas that we describe, a body is not going to last very long. Like you don't find dead gorillas. I've been in the Central African Republic, the Congo, and the CAR. You don't find dead primates. The bones are gone very, very shortly after they die. So it's not even that type of evidence. It's very difficult to get a photo of an animal in the wild, unless you know exactly what you're targeting and where it's going to be. Nat Geo photographers spend days to get one photo of a bird that they know goes to this area and is exactly what they want to see. So, I mean, it's not. Yeah, that's why it's still on the fence. I think there's such a big creature and spotted so frequently. um I would think that we would have better evidence right now, at least droppings and hair and other things that we could definitively point to one unidentified species and say, yes, even though we haven't seen it, this is all from the same species. And the fact that we don't have that just makes me think, why don't we have that? And then it's the classic, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. So fence.
So it wouldn't surprise you
It would
if
not. It would not surprise
we
me. I'd
discovered.
be very excited.
Yeah. Um, what about the connection? And again, only because you're a punk bass player, you can appreciate this. But what about the connection? It seems that we hear a lot about a UFO sighting and a Bigfoot sighting happening at the same time.
Mhm.
Two different groups of people. One is seeing, lights in the sky. The same night, we've got a Bigfoot report from another group of people. And it's suddenly now the Bigfoot community doesn't want to join the UFO community. They're
Very
not.
true. It's
No.
very true.
No. The UFO community is okay with it, but but the Bigfoot community, they want to stay. They want to stay unconnected here. But it appears that there may be a connection. Why do you think that we're hearing these reports going on at the same time?
So I wonder if it could be something to do with location. I mean, you're in two fairly isolated, locations where you can get a really great view of the sky and where it's going to be a really wild space. So you're more likely to see, some kind of large creature that's in the wilderness. They just happen to be in the same type of location. And people are out looking for both things at the same place.
Now, World Bigfoot
How
Radio.
to catch them DNA. Yeah.
Yeah. Can we address this a little bit here?
So everything, it's a very, very contentious topic, and I'm hesitant to really weigh in.
It is.
I think that everything that I have read on it is that the DNA has always been inconclusive, and it's been unable to tie to one distinct species. That we do get back, like it's similar to, there has been a few findings where they've said, okay, we found some DNA that's similar to a human, but it's not human. And then when another researcher looks at the same sample, they go, nah, it's not. Or another researcher looks at it and goes, yeah, it's just human. So I think that there has been some contamination issues with some of the samples, and the Ketchum study in particular, I know has been contentious. Let's say there's not universal acceptance of it's not a peer-reviewed, universal accepted.
Well, what's your opinion, though?
I'd have to.
I don't know if you're running for political office, but you should be, because
I would honestly have to dig into it more before I'd be.
That was a dance, man. That was a dance.
So I will say the Yeti samples I think are more compelling. So there was the study just a few years ago where they found the Yeti hairs that were tied back to a polar bear. And they actually said that this is a species of polar bear that they thought had gone extinct something like 10,000 years ago. And then the same samples were retested, and it was found to be at least very, very closely related to a Nepalese bear. And I think that those are, the chain of custody was better on
Right.
those, and they are more compelling to me to say that, could the Yeti be a species of bear? I think it could. I think that a lot of the sightings could tie that to a species of bear that's either something that we previously thought went extinct, or a new species of bear.
Why is it that something can take off as quick as it does? Like, for instance, chupacabra, right?
Mm-hmm.
You brought up thunderbirds. I was alive. I think I'm older than you.
I'm 43.
Okay, I'm 60. So
Okay. You don't look it. I would not have guessed that.
I lived the Thunderbird era.
Yeah.
Okay. I was in Indiana when the photographs and the films and the sightings were taking place, and it was on the news, it was on the newspaper, and suddenly me and my buddies are out in cornfields, looking for the Thunderbird.
Yeah.
I lived through that, and very compelling. And it just took off, man. It went viral in its own way. Chupacabra did the exact same thing. Now, is that cryptozoology, or is that fringe folklore, urban legend?
Yeah, so chupacabra is one of the rare cases when we can point back to the origin of the story, when we can find that this is folklore. It is something that was definitively invented and made up, as a kind of campfire story, which is great. And I think chupacabra is very interesting for that, and it's a great story. And I think it takes off because people tie it then to other events. So like the cows, the cows being found with their blood drained. People can then take that, and they've heard the chupacabra, they can tie it together, and it's something that's fun to talk about and something that's fun to speculate on. So and that happens a lot when we're talking about different legends and different stories that just kind of tap into something primal in our consciousness. Every culture has story of hairy hominids, from from the Yowie in Australia to the Yeren in China to the rock apes in Vietnam to, we can go through all of these, and there's something primal, some kind of tribal memory in us to remember a time when there were multiple species of hominid living together, upwards of 6 to 8 different species of humans living together and coexisting at some points in history, sometimes more recently than we'd like to think.
It's not chupacabra, but Bigfoot specifically. where you have everything from snowmen in the Himalayas to skunk ape, in Florida,
Yeah.
right? Where this is transoceanic. This
Mhm.
is every culture having the same sighting way before we had telephones.
Yes.
So there certainly seems to be something going on, and I don't think it's necessarily, again, I'm somebody that's supposed to be on the fence, but I'm talking myself into this constantly, right? Where this can't be memory contamination in our DNA. This can't be just like dreams of a distant past. This can't be deja vu. This is all very recent, up to this very day that these sightings are happening, and we can't seem to figure it out. I don't think it's deep rooted psychosis. I don't.
No, I don't think it's psychosis. But I mean, I think that there is a cultural archetype of the hairy hominid that has been persistent throughout all of human history, all of recorded history. You can go all the way back to uh, Grendel, back in the earliest stories that we know of. There is this cultural archetype of the hairy human, the wild man, this still existing, and there's so many different reasons for this. Everything from hermits to actual apes to just cultural memories of a time when this really was there.
Except, okay, now this is where I give you my except. So I got this friend, golfing buddy. Okay, golf. Yeah, I used to play golf. Okay, so we're out playing golf one day, and this is many, many years ago, 30 years ago, 25 years ago, playing golf. And I don't know how this happened, but he tells me this story. It's a golfer. He says, man, when I was a kid, we'd spend the summers on our ranch up in Montana. And my parents had 10,000 acres, and there was this creek that ran through the ranch. And every morning I would get my fishing rod and go down and fish. He says, I'm 12 years old, 13 years old, and I'm down fishing in the creek. And he said, behind us is a hill, this embankment. And I'm fishing, and this rock lands next to me. I was like, wow. He thought it rolled down the hill on its own. Mm-hmm. Then another one, ploop. And he moves up the river to avoid the falling rocks from the embankment behind him. He thinks loose rocks are rolling down the hill, and he doesn't want to get hit by one of these bowling ball-sized rocks that are landing next to him. He's now up the creek, literally. He's fishing, and then another boom, bowling ball side is thrown at him. He turns around and looks, and he said he sees from behind the hill, shoulders up, Bigfoot looking at him. Yeah. He runs up the hill to get to Bigfoot, gets up to the top of the hill, and down at the end of the tree line, Bigfoot is dashing into the trees. Now, that's not a hermit.
No.
In upstate New York.
No.
That's not a grizzly bear. That's right. Not, it's not. And this is just him telling me a story. And I believe it to be true. I believe it happened exactly like he says it happened. And this is one of millions of stories that we have like this.
Yeah, from very reliable people, and from people who are hesitant to tell the stories because they don't want they don't want to get pegged with the moniker of this is the Bigfoot guy, this is the Bigfoot girl. Yeah, no, I've heard similar ones from people that I trust and that I recognize, and it's really hard to say. I mean, I would not say that the person is a liar. I would not say that they're making this up, but I'm also not ready to jump in and say that I believe that there is an 8 foot tall human like hairy hominid in North America. I just haven't seen enough yet.
So you're fishing
Mhm.
and you get hit by a bowling ball and you turn around and you see that. Does your
I believe
does your story change?
100%, absolutely.
But now you're the crazy dude.
Yeah, I'm all right with that. If I can back it up and I've seen it myself, I'm all right with being the crazy dude. I heard in Brazil what I believe to be a giant ground sloth. I heard it. I can't give any other explanation for what other animal it might have been or for what it could. It sounded like a sloth call, but much deeper, and sounded exactly like someone who had researched giant ground sloths described that their call would have sounded like.
Well,
And I heard it.
what's a giant ground sloth?
Like a 6 to 8 foot tall sloth on the ground that incredibly thick skin, dermal, what's it called, like patches that would be almost impenetrable even with a knife or with most bullets, and
Bulletproof.
essentially bulletproof. Yeah, ground sloth. I mean, what we know lived in the Pliocene. Most people say that they went extinct about 10,000 years ago. We know that some ground sloths survived, like on the island of Hispaniola, up until about 900 years ago. But I do believe that it's very possible that there's a remnant population in certain parts of Brazil.
Now, is it a relative of the normal sloth?
Yes.
Okay, now I'm going to sound like I know what I'm talking about, but let's lay some facts out here when we're talking about the sloth.
Mhm.
Slowest metabolism of anything known, right?
They're up there for
Yeah,
sure.
in the known universe, right? Sleeps like 23 and a half hours a day.
Almost.
Yeah,
I worked on a sloth. I filmed on a sloth sanctuary in Costa Rica for a while. They're my favorite land animals.
so you're like Jimmy, man. You're spitting out the big facts here. The slowest. I mean, everything. I would think that in the sloths world, that they even see in slow motion.
They're pretty amazing animals.
They're
They
pretty
are.
amazing animals, and yet they survive, right?
Oh
But
yeah,
they move, right?
yeah,
Literally like this.
yeah. I always say if you get bitten by a sloth, it's your fault.
Yeah, it's your fault. So how is it possible that a giant ground sloth cannot be discovered when it doesn't even move?
A different diet, different survival strategy. These would be much faster.
But
And
you think so? So it's not.
no, they're not. They're not like the. I mean, they're related to, in the same way that a giant anteater is related to a sloth. These would be more closely related. They would have the same kind of claws on the feet and on the hands. But yeah, I mean, within the same. Oh God, same family.
So giant sloth, do they have opposing thumbs?
I don't believe so.
Okay. All right. Because I was going to say maybe it's Bigfoot.
I have heard that. I've heard people say that.
I've heard the same thing, actually. But for it to survive and not be discovered, we go down to Brazil all the time
Mhm.
On a daily basis, and we discover new species. It's a job for most people
Yeah.
that's exactly what they do, right?
Yeah. The areas where this is spotted are regions where there are uncontacted tribes. There are still tribes, individuals, indigenous people who have no contact with the outside world. And that they are protected by the government, where if you wanted to go in there, you have to get special permission. So I had to go through, medical exams and go through background checks in order to see not the uncontacted tribes, but I forget what the next level of it's called, the lightly contacted tribes. And there's still a protection to go in there. And then this is even further beyond that. And their culture, there's a story that has been in existence since the cultures have existed, that what they call the Mapinguari is this animal that is other. it is not. It is different than any other creature. It can't be eaten. It can't, it can't interact with you in any way. And it's almost like revering this creature to the point where if it is seen or heard, so if you hear the animals call or if you happen to see it, your entire tribe has to leave that area of the forest and move, miles away and never go back there.
Wow.
So if you are an uncontacted tribe and loosely contacted tribes that have government protection and have always had this protection where no Westerners are able to go into these areas, and you are leaving these areas wherever you hear or see one of these creatures, and in the rest of the world, these animals were hunted to extinction, you're now creating a wildlife sanctuary for these creatures that has existed for all of human history.
So what about, okay, is there, I'm saving the best for last. Is there an area on this planet where dinosaurs have survived?
So
wait.
sure.
Nope. That's not my question.
Okay.
Is there an area on this planet where dinosaurs have survived? Number one. And number two, what about dragons?
So the first one is every bird that we see is a dinosaur. So yes, dinosaurs have absolutely survived. We can see, you look at an ostrich's legs and tell me that that's not a dinosaur. So theropod dinosaurs did evolve into all of the bird species that we see today. So and the there's one in Brazil that still has the remnant claws on its wings. I mean, so absolutely, those are it. When we think about the dinosaurs, how an 8-year-old would describe a dinosaur. When my daughter is obsessed with dinosaurs and my son is really getting obsessed with dinosaurs, something that they would consider a dinosaur. No, there's nothing that has survived to the present day. I was in West Africa looking for Mokele Mbembe and looking down there to see, what this where this story could have come from. And I do believe that it's, an important cultural story. And I think it's it's important to the tribes in the area because it is an out. It is a culturally accepted out from doing certain dangerous activities. And what I mean by that is if you're a fisherman in one of these tribes and you don't want to go down to the river at night because there are crocodiles there, then you're looked at as weak. But if you don't want to go down to the river at night because Mokele Mbembe is there, then you're looked at as smart. So you have a culturally accepted way to get out of doing a very dangerous activity.
God said, don't go down there.
Exactly. So that's what I believe Mokele Mbembe is. And that's really the last. Well, there's a few other places where people spot dinosaurs, the rope-in and things like that, but nothing that has any sort of any evidence that I've found compelling other than Mokele Mbembe. So I would say that that's no for dinosaurs. And for dragons, I think it's a much more interesting story because people say, oh, well, they were finding dinosaur bones and then equating it to dragons, but that doesn't really hold water. That's
No,
not
dinosaur bones is such a recent discovery.
Right. It's
100 years old. It's 100 years old. 150 years old. I mean, that's it. That's it.
Yeah,
That's it.
the dragons are so much more interesting because again, it's one of those stories that is across cultures, across the entire world.
5,000 years we've had depictions of dragons.
Where did these come from? What is this based on? And there isn't a good answer for it. It seems to be another one of those archetypes. It's the wild man, it's the dragon.
But
and the sea serpent, serpent, the wild man, the dragon, and the sea serpent.
No doubt. But 5,000 years ago, or you've got Mayans and the Egyptians and the Chinese, all Northern Europe, right?
Yep. Northern Europe.
All depicting the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like the woolly mammoth, right?
There's different flavors to it, but I mean, essentially the same creature. But there are there's cultural flavors to it in each one of the regions, the same as there are for the wild man. But it does seem to be an archetype.
Are you saying that you don't think dragons ever existed?
I I think it's an impossible question to answer because and I think that's one of the problems with cryptozoology.
Right.
That what I was saying earlier about the Yeti being a bear, as a biologist, I would love that. And I would be fascinated by that. And if we found a new species of bear in Nepal and in northern India, and in the Himalayas, I would absolutely want to know everything about this and I would want to study it. Most people in the public would go, yeah, but it's not the Yeti. And you're like, yeah, but it is. Oh, but it's not, because it's not exactly what we want the Yeti to be. And I
Mhm.
think dragons are the same. Was there a creature at some point in history that could explain sightings of the dragons? Probably, but was it a flying reptile that breathed fire?
Yes.
Probably not.
No, it
And
was.
then,
It was. It was. It was. I'm okay with that.
but
So
biologically, it would be. I have never heard, and I've seen a lot on it, and I've read a lot about it. I've never seen a biologically sound argument to allow for those adaptations to exist in a creature.
okay. I'm going to bring up something crazy. Have you ever heard of a pterodactyl? I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
Yes, yeah.
You know what? And when you think about something that terrifying,
Mhm.
right? Is it possible, right? The Lost Plateau or whatever. Is it possible for something like that to have survived on its own in mountain ranges up until recent history, where cultures and then it's just died off because of the food pyramid, and there was nothing left for it to eat, and it couldn't have sex and procreate, whatever it is, and just died off. But that cultures were seeing it around the world. And I'd say, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I'm okay with it, and yeah,
It's just one of those, like, and again, it's that impossible question that was there an animal that explained the sightings of dragons? Possibly. But was it what we want to think of as a dragon, as like a long snake-like creature with,
breathing
short legs and
fire,
breathing fire and with a fin down its back, and
guarding
biologically, I don't think so.
guarding a cave full of gold.
Right, right.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I want there to be, but yeah, biologically, it's harder to make that case.
There's when I look at the idea behind dragons, and you look at the family crests or
Oh, yeah.
the historical record of this around the world, right? Going back millennia, they were seeing something.
Yeah.
And this isn't imagine they didn't have an opportunity to read a Tolkien book, right?
Right, right.
Right? You see, and
Yeah, no, and I do, and I think that's the fundamental issue with cryptozoology is that unless we find the exact creature that people want it to be, then it isn't that in their mind. So if we were to find evidence of a creature that lived 10,000 years ago and met one quarter of the characteristics of a dragon, like so megalania, for instance, in Australia. If we found a giant lizard that was as big as megalania and lived all over the world, would people go, ah, dragons? They wouldn't. They would go, ah, a big lizard, cool. Let's keep looking for dragons.
right. Hey, there's a new Indiana Jones movie coming out.
Mhm, I've heard.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about this actually. And I'm sure that you are. And when I hear the comparisons, I get bios in, as you can imagine, right? And she is considered the Indiana Jones of, right. And I see this all the time, and I never read that part of a bio when it
Yeah,
comes in. I will not. I just won't go there.
yeah,
You slept with, laid down with 200,000 snakes.
I did. I did for my 31st birthday.
That is the craziest thing. I didn't want to bring that up at the beginning of the show. I wanted to save it until now. So when somebody says, well, I'm the Indiana Jones of, no, dude, It just sounds like the dumbest idea like ever.
Yeah, so I had gone through a year of hell. I was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer. I spent a few months in the hospital. I had a 50% chance at surviving,
Mhm.
and I pulled through. But I mean, it was brutal. It was just an absolutely terrible experience, as one can imagine. And then I started feeling a little bit more like myself, and myself is weird. I'm a strange person, and I
So
wanted to do.
so Pat, you've just kicked cancer's ass. What
Yeah,
is it that you want to do now? Well, you
I'm
know
gonna go.
what? Yeah.
That is literally what happened.
Wow.
That is so, my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, was like, "Well, what do you want to do? What's gonna, like, help you to feel like yourself again, to feel like," and I said, I want to show myself that I can still do this stuff, that I can still film and I can still get out there. And I said, there's something that I've always wanted to see. I've read about these snake pits, the Narcisse snake dens up in Manitoba, Canada, and it's the largest concentration of snakes on Earth. And I've always wanted to go see them. So I'm going to contact the Canadian government and see if I can get permission to go and lay down in this pit. And she goes, "Cool. All right. Who's going to go with you?" And I said, "I know exactly who." And I called up my buddy Dom, who is a cameraman, and he was a cameraman on a bunch of my stuff, and one of our good friends, Jared. I said, "Hey Dom, I'm thinking about going up to Manitoba." And he goes, "Are you going to do the snake dens?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to do the snake dens." He's like, "I'm in. Let's do it."
How
So we
long?
got into town.
How long were you
Uh,
down
so we drove 34 hours straight up to Manitoba, Canada. Got waited about 12 hours until the sun came up, and that's when the pits really fill up. So this is the largest concentration of snakes on Earth. They're underground in limestone caves, and as the sun warms them up for just a few days every year, maybe a week every year, they all emerge at once out of these dens. So I went in there when there was maybe 50 to 100 snakes, and I laid down on the rocks as the sun was coming up, and then there was 500, and then there was 1,000, and then there was 2,000, and then there was 10,000. And I mean, you could reach in up to your shoulder and just let the snakes just slide down your arm. You could they were crawling up my sleeves and my pants, down my shirt, just everywhere you can imagine, and just thousands. I mean, the 200,000 number is a little bit like too, because I've read everything from 75,000 up to 400,000. So I just picked a number in the middle. But it was a lot of snakes. It was more snakes than I've ever seen in my life, and I like snakes a lot.
Would you do it again?
Oh, in a heartbeat, absolutely. It was amazing. I mean, it was just so surreal. It was Lovecraftian in its strangeness. And the three of us, actually, from filming, you get so desensitized to this that these guys were doing the same thing. We're like, like Scrooge McDuck with coins, but we're doing it with snakes as they're coming down. We smelled so bad that I had to sell my car when I got back to Boston. And the dealer, I mean, I sold my car that week.
Yeah, did you disclose on the dealership?
So the dealer gets in the car and he's like, "It's in pretty good shape." He goes, "Weird smell." I go, "I don't know what you're talking about." He's like, "You don't smell that?" He's like, "It's very unusual." I was like, "No, sorry, man."
No, I'm not a smoker, man. I don't know what you're talking about. That's just normal. Pat, awesome show. Thank you so much, man. A great conversation. I look forward to the next time you joining us here on Fade to Black. Thank you. What's the best way for everybody to reach out to you?
Patspain.com, and my 6 books are all available on Amazon and any of your local bookstores.
Pat Spain, the absolute very best, my friend. Go play some bass. Get the band back together. I'll talk
Thank
to
you so
soon.
much. Great to talk to you.
Great show. Great show. Pat Spain, everybody. PatSpain.com. All of his books are right there. And now I want to let everybody know Thursday night, we have a very special show. John Greenwald will be joining us. So we have rescheduled our guest that we had booked for Thursday night. Thursday night, John Greenwald is going to be here. We're going to be talking all night about the whistleblower Grush and what is going on with that and all of the latest developments. So stay tuned for all of that. Tomorrow night, I have Damian John Matt with us. He's a filmmaker out of Australia, and we are going to be talking about UFOs tomorrow night, and of course, everything else that is going on. So stay tuned for that. That is tomorrow night, and then Thursday night, John Greenwald. Fade to Black is produced by Hill J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Thank you to Dennis and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy. SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2023 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Until tomorrow night with Damian John Knott, be safe. Go back, Lee Tappy.